Thanks, Lindsay, and thanks everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be GHD hosting everyone here and to be able to speak to you. I joined GHD over 20 years ago, and it's actually closer to 30. But once you get to a point, you just say over 20, I think. As a male civil engineer, and we were a bunch of male civil engineers, and one of the things I've seen in my time at GHD as we've changed, and this is in what we do and who and how we work and how we think about things. And I sometimes just need to reflect back and the changes we've made, which have been huge, but I think we've still got a long way to go, and that's certainly one of the things I'll touch base on today. Yes, we are. One of the things I think, and we're taking a strategy to be very, we're a consulting business, and trying to take a very overt approach to this, and that's why it's great to be able to share some of the things we're doing. This is not one of those things where we've got great business strategies and we're going to keep them to ourselves because we don't want to share them with our competitors. Actually, we think there's a real benefit in sharing what we're doing, and I'll touch base on a few of those things today, and we'll probably, hopefully open that up in the conversation with the panel. Many of the things I think, and just sitting here and listening to Lindsay and Bridget, I'm going to say in a slightly different way, but they're really common themes I think will keep coming through, and it's probably good to hear them in a slightly different way. But certainly gender diversity is really high on the agenda for GHD. As this slide says, it's important to us, and when we say us as a business, to our people, to our clients, our community. Fundamentally, it absolutely makes business sense, and I think I've got the same source even for the 15% in terms of that, and it's just an absolute no-brainer. And certainly my experience, as I've worked with more diverse teams, I've just seen that as being just a far more effective way to work and greater outcomes coming from that. So not to mention it just being more fun and enjoyable and rewarding. But really is a business. It is a business imperative, and I think that's important to be clear about. The other thing is for GHD and our focus on being a more inclusive, having a more inclusive culture, is gender is one part of it. I know that's the focus of the conversation, and that's what I will primarily talk about today. But really, we have a broader perspective, and cultural generation, LGBTI, all of those, and they all interweave. And so it's not, we can talk about one in isolation, but really our focus is collectively. We have had a greater focus on gender, but certainly in the last 12 months, we're really continuing to think about through different elements of diversity, and in particular, being inclusive. So it's not just diversity for the sake of actually having been able to quote some stats and statistics. It's actually the culture. And that's what being a very inclusive culture, which we think is very important for our business. One of the things we did over the last couple of years is, because I'm sure in the past there's been cases where we've had a bunch of men sit around a table and decide this is what we need to do, that we actually took a proactive approach to actually listen and talk to the women in our business. And so there was a series of workshops that were run across GHD. There's 130 participants, different cities and different countries, to actually try and work out, really help shape our thinking on gender diversity, and really identify what's important. And as this slide says, a couple of key sort of takeaways from that exercise: flexibility, mentors, support. Not just policies and procedures, but it's actually seeing it in the business. So visible role models, proactive career planning, parental leave, and probably, in my view, as important, if not more important, the return from parental leave and back into the business, and really opening our minds to the type of work and roles and how we can do them. And that was really an important part of work that's actually shaping what we're doing. Flexibility, making flexibility the norm, and that's one thing that I've really seen change, and I think will continue to change. And we do every every 12 months we do a survey. We survey all of our people. In fact, this is based on our last survey. We've just completed our current survey, so we don't have the data yet. But 3 things that came out about, you know, what makes working at GHD great, and our people, our opportunities, the projects we work on, and flexible working. And I remember reviewing you get data on actually some of the words people write about the business, and flexible just kept coming through, all sorts of comments that were coming through, and that's helped drive what we're doing and how we work. And the slide, there's an article that was in the Fin with Chris French here, who's up the back here, who features talking about how we're focused on not just women but men, and that came from, and Chris and I, because Chris, I think at the time, reports to me and came to me one day and said that, you know, he's just looking ahead. He's in a management role and wanted to switch to part-time to spend more time with his kids for a year or so. And look, to be honest, to me that was just a natural, yeah, why not sort of thing. And I'm not saying that because something special that, you know, that I've done or anything else. Actually, but I sort of reflected back on it, that it's actually the change in myself. If I put myself back 10 or 15 years ago, I would have said, oh, you can't, you're a manager, you can't do that. Or, you know, I think even myself. And if anything, my reflection was, gee, I wish I'd asked that question when I was at the same time. My kids are about 10 years older, and that I'd actually asked the same question. And I sort of actually felt a little bit of, not guilt, but disappointment that I perhaps missed that opportunity. And I think, so we really are seeing and trying to promote all sorts of people doing this. And it's not men and women at all level and all roles in the business. And it is something that's changing. Now, it's still pockets, and it's still, we've got a way to go, but I do see change is really something that it's not quite snowballing yet, but there is momentum in that change. Another thing, and we've really focused on our parental leave policies for men and women. And again, not just the policies, what's in place, but we've actually seen a real increase in the take-up of men taking parental leave as a primary caregiver. And I think something I saw where about 2 years ago when we was first doing it, 5% of the parental leave was men. Last year was 15%. Now, I've only got 2 years data, so I'm not sure if next year is going to be 25 or 35, but there's no doubt people see what other people are doing and what they can do, and I'm pretty confident we'll see that continue to increase. Another area that we've really focused on, and I've myself done training on a couple of occasions around unconscious bias, and it's really, I can just see, I've seen it more where people are actually calling each other out and actually doing it as being a common part of our conversation now. And it's something that we've looked through at all levels, and it's an ongoing program around our people working through and understanding unconscious bias. And this is not just about gender, this is more broadly. But again, I think this is actually helping us to be a better business, to be a better place to work, and helping us to make better decisions, and having a culture where we can call it out, and we are actually becoming more self-aware of those conscious and unconscious biases. In terms of recruitment, opportunities for our people, we've really thought about that, and I guess there's a number of elements to this. How we're being more transparent about our roles. I mean, I reflect back on the way that we used to appoint people, and in a consulting, privately owned business, people just went into roles. It just sort of happened. So now we're getting far more transparency in terms of the way we advertise roles. And this is an example. We call it Cracking Careers. It's it comes out monthly, and it's broadening in terms of the opportunities right across the business. But not just advertising, having some more open, but we're actually thinking about how do we present those roles, how do we describe them, how we advertise. The actual words that we're writing into the job descriptions really actually make a difference. Now, I always thought people don't read it, they see the title, they have a look at it and they're interested or not, but actually I've certainly learned, actually the way you describe roles really it's actually a real subtlety in there, but it's really important in terms of doing it, about flexible approaches, or who can and can't do roles, or can do, and broadening that, and we've really focused on that, and we are seeing a difference in terms of the applications. Another example in this, and I just pinched it off the wall outside, is that we've just launched, and this isn't in my slides, but is something we've just done and we're really proud of. And again, we're being very external about doing it. It's what we called our career relaunch program, and you'll see a lot of the images we're using are sort of common themes. So, and this is a program just launched about a month or two ago, is about actually where people have had career breaks and actually re-entry, and it's a 10-week paid flexible career relaunch program, and really we've had a fantastic response to that in terms of men and women as well. It's probably there's more women than men, but there's men who we've had started here, and this is a new program. We think this is something that's really got a lot of merit in, and we'll see some great success from going forward. Our leadership. This is our Australian leadership team, which I'm a member of, and we've progressively seen change. 36% of that team are women in a variety of roles, and you know, some of them I think, well, it's covering from operational, technical, client-facing sort of business development. So it's really covering the full gamut of the roles we have in our leadership. And that leadership team really are focusing and driving this from the top with real genuine passion and commitment to it. And this actually photo, I think I remember we're standing actually here taking that. So, and this was last year when we actually had a range of pledges, and I again drag out my little prompt, but this was my pledge and they're all that were printed up based on a pledge. So my pledge was to help create a culture of flexibility for everyone on my team. And one of the things I did in that is I went around and talked to our business, and I had conversations with each of the people that reported to me about, well, what are they thinking about in terms of being flexible, and have they thought about options for themselves? And I was doing that, one, to make sure they are thinking about themselves, but really hoping that then they're going on and having the same conversations with their team, and really and really opening the thinking, because we have had some parts of our business really taking quite flexible approaches, but others very, very traditional engineering, consulting, male approaches. And I think these sort of things are actually helping to change people's thinking about the way you can work, and what works and what doesn't. And there was a range of different pledges as a team that we made, and I think generally lived and carried through on. It wasn't just for a photo shoot and put some props up around the place. We are also, and you can see some of the themes of this is another recent sort of campaign where we're really trying to tell our stories, because I actually think we can have all the policies and processes in place, but we've actually got to live it. And we've got to tell people, we've got to be very overt about it. So this is a campaign, and this is not just about gender, but gender is a key theme in here, and there's videos, and these are real people, real GHD people telling their story and being those role models and inspiration for our people, and hopefully for people to join GHD, and more broadly, I think, for our industries, actually, in terms of what you can do. And you know, we talk about ourselves as a people business, and what makes that so rich is the stories we each can tell. And these are key things that we're doing to actually really role model diversity and inclusion in our business. Now, we can be all. I'm sort of painting a very positive story that we're fantastic, we're great at GHD, and trust me, we are. But I'll put this up because, as I say, we've still got a way to go, and this is some stat just over a year of across the Australian business of our female senior leaders and our female emerging leaders, These are very broad description. And we talk about these, when we talk in these, this is grouping together technical, it's not just executives, it's really above a certain consulting level. And you know, we've increased in a year from, in terms of female senior leaders, to 11 to 13%, a couple of percent. And we're driving that to 25% in 2020, and which is a goal set by our board, and it is, you know, we've got some work to do. And in our emerging leaders, which obviously is feeding into those future senior leaders, is we're creeping up, but it's at a pretty slow rate. So I guess in conclusion, I think ultimately what drives change, and I think these are some things we've talked about, there is no silver bullet in this. There's no one thing you've got to do, and having progressive and supportive policy and process is really important, but we've really got to have the leadership around them, the role models. We've actually got to live the culture. We've got to actually put it in place, and it's got to be very overt for men and women. People got to see it and understand it and talk about it and generate new ideas. That self-awareness of unconscious bias, role modelling, and the accountability and measurement. And you know, as saying just there, and we are looking on a quarterly basis, so we actually understand what's happening. And we do know that when we measure it and see the numbers, it actually drives some focus for us back to actually say, okay, this is not, what more can we do? And so the measurement and accountability is really important. Thank you.